Can't believe that this cute girl will be a scammer in the future. Although Yumi is only the daughter of a suit shop owner in the countryside, since childhood, she has been able to learn the rich lady's favorite subjects, such as learn to play the piano and learn English. The reason was because, when was young, Yumi met a foreign military couple. When they came to order clothes, Yumi had the fate of meeting his wife and wife. The woman was surprised by Yumi's intelligence, so she often took her home to teach Yumi some of the hobbies of the upper class. This wonderful encounter seemed like luck that changed Yumi's life. But she forgets that a gift from fate often comes with a price. The officer's wife is a spoiled woman in the remote Korean countryside, making her feel lonely. In order to separate herself from this backward countryside, she began to deceive others that she was an aristocrat. She also said she was Princess Diana's biological sister to attract attention. Not only that, she also taught Yumi deceitfully lied that you should stay calm when you has a trump card. Don't let others see into your heart. That way you can be invincible. Soon the officer and his wife left here. Before leaving, the wife told Yumi to remember to keep a calm face. Yumi engraved this sentence deeply in her heart, and in the next growth trajectory, based on her own excellence and calm face, Yumi did the people around her believed her lies. Until Yumi had her high school love, her smooth life was completely interrupted. With a few months left until the university entrance exam, the school suddenly discovered that she had feelings for the music teacher. The love between teacher and student was a violation. Serious school rules. In order to save his job, the music teacher blamed Yumi. The man who blamed her was the one who approached him. Yumi was extremely heartbroken. This was the first time someone skilled at lying like she was hurt by other people's lies. In the end, the music teacher was simply suspended from his job, but Yumi had to urgently change schools. One early morning, she left her hometown, desperate to go to Seoul with her father to study. The new school initially did not want to accept Yumi, but considering her excellent grades, they still broke the rules. The teacher only had one request, that Yumi could not make friends, but only focusing on studying. Her father found Yumi a room and left living expenses behind and left Seoul, far from her familiar hometown. Yumi lost her original way of life. There were no opportunities around her to build a lying. Yumi lost the compliment and fell into despair. Her eyes no longer had the confidence she had. Her scores dropped rapidly, so she could not enter college. After the results of the college entrance exam were announced, Yumi was immersed in despair because she didn't pass. Then her father called to tell her that her mother was suffering from Alzheimer's disease. He told Yumi to go home and visit her mother when she had time. He was no longer considerate in asking about the university exam results of daughter. Yumi really couldn't tell the truth that she had failed the exam. After many struggles, she lied to her father that she had passed the university entrance exam. After receiving ceremonies and gifts from her parents, Yumi began to correct this lie. She spent a lot of money to go back to school. During this time, Yumi stayed with a student girl named Ji-won. Ji-won knew that Yumi studied at the same university as her, so she warmly approached Yumi. She exchanged phone numbers with Yumi. She also invited Yumi to join the school's magazine editorial board. But Yumi knew she was not a student, so she had to refuse, because with the reason she was not interested. Ji-won had no doubts about Yumi, but just thought she was a shy and introverted girl. Especially Yumi had a harmless and innocent face. Looking at the bustling university campus, Yumi also longed to be a student. That day, after Yumi finished studying for the retake exam, Ji-won invited her to the editing club to eat pizza. Back to the student atmosphere where the girls gathered together, Yumi couldn't control herself anymore and started to let loose. When someone asked her where she was from, Yumi accidentally revealed that she lived in America when she was young, which made everyone was jealous. When was praised, Yumi was happy again. No one could think that this shy girl was a liar. Ji-won found Yumi very cute, so before leaving, she even gave a gift exclusive shirt of the editorial club for Yumi. Not long after Yumi finished the retest review course and continued to participate in the university exam. As soon as finished the exam, Yumi collapsed on the table sadly. She was afraid this time will not be able to get into university. While walking on the way home, Ji-won called and invited Yumi to participate in the editorial club meeting. At this exciting party, beautiful Yumi received a lot of attention. The male students are all happy, surrounding her and doing all sorts of things. That night, Yumi met a guy named Jae-ho and fell in love with him. A few days later, the exam prep teacher called Yumi and told her not to set a goal for a school that was difficult to pass like medical school. Otherwise, she will fail again. But Yumi would rather study for the exam a third time than enter a third-rate university. After Yumi and Jae-ho have been in love for a while, one day, Jae-ho told her that he had the opportunity to become an exchange student in New York. He couldn't bear to leave Yumi, so he offered to take her with him. After graduating, the two of them would get married. He mentioned Yumi with his mother. His family also wants to meet this future daughter-in-law. Finally, being able to go to the desired place, which is America, Yumi's mood is also extremely happy. But studying abroad requires a lot of money, so Yumi had to go home and ask her father for help. Her father tried to earn enough money for his daughter to study abroad, right before boarding the plane. Fate suddenly teased Yumi. Jae-ho now received a call from mother. She said that everything he knew about Yumi was fake. She said that there was no one named Yumi on the school's student list. She wanted her son to stay away from this liar. After the flight takes off, Yumi leaves the airport alone and returns to the dilapidated rented house. One morning, she received a call from her neighbor in the countryside. It turned out that her father had passed away from cancer. At first, he wanted to told Yumi before she came to America, but because he didn't want to affect her child's future, so he hid it. Yumi returned to her hometown with large and small luggage bags. She stood in front of her father's coffin and cried bitterly. She deeply regretted a lie that made her miss the opportunity to see her father one last time. After her father passed away, Yumi started selling his suit shop. When looked through the notebook, she found that her parents had been very frugal all their lives, and all the huge expenses were spent on her. This made Yumi feel even sadder. After returning to Seoul, because she had no education, she had to survive by doing odd jobs in many places. Just like that, a few years passed, and one time she looked recruitment information, no need of educational level. She went to her workplace to apply. This is a family-run art gallery company. The president is Arthur Lee. The Yumi's job is to wholeheartedly serve Chairman Lee's daughter, is Lady Hyunju. Chairman Lee has no other requirements for Yumi. He just needs her to keep her promise and work hard. Hyunju's mother is a devout believer. She often gathers with friends at home to pray. Hyunju recently returned from America. She has a vibrant personality and strong will. She does not far from being compatible with the conservative family atmosphere. One day, Hyunju and her mother were about to go meet guests. Mom thought Hyunju's outfit was too revealing, so she told Yumi to get more formal clothes for Hyunju. It was the first time Yumi entered Hyunju's room. The giant floor-to-ceiling glass windows surprised her. The dazzling dressing room made her even more dizzy. Yumi had never experienced such a life. At that moment, she saw a pair of beautiful high heels on the ground. She tried to put the shoes on and found it fit. Her beautiful slim legs perfectly matched these elegant shoes. Everything was suitable, but all of it is not hers. Hyunju's life is the reality version of Yumi's lie. Although very close, Yumi can only stand at the foot of her dream, looking at Hyunju's beautiful life. Although Hyunju occasionally gives Yumi something, for example a watch she doesn't like anymore. But that's not care or friendship, but more like charity for the lower class. Not only Hyunju, but Arthur Lee looks down on servants even more. One time Yumi came to ask for leave, but it was like standing in front of a gun. Arthur Lee hated it when employees took time off from work, so he scolded them for being stupid and lazy. That's why they live their whole life at the bottom of society. Class are always gaps between people. These words hurt Yumi deeply, but she still had to happily serve Hyunju. Hyunju was in a bad mood because of the wedding, so she prepared to fly abroad vacation. She also told Yumi that she was not happy. Yumi's heartfelt pain. If are so rich and still feel unhappy, what is her suffering? Yumi took Hyunju's American passport and saw that her English name was Anna on it. Seeing that her visa was about to expire in a month, Yumi talked about this with Hyunju, but Hyunju dropped the passport on the ground and told Yumi to refresh it. Don't tell her these little things to make her headache worse. Yumi picked up passport and left expressionlessly. In her heart, there was an anger that had been suppressed for many years, burning. Beautiful fantasies has become dusty because of reality. The years of suffering have changed her nature. She has longed for a rich life for so long. That night, Yumi took money from the gallery and Hyunju's passport. She left this art museum when the snow was falling. She decided to pursue what she wanted at all costs. Just like her life motto since childhood, as long as it is what I want to do, I will definitely be able to do it. After Yumi escaped from the gallery, she went back to her hometown to visit her mother. The next day, Yumi woke up and turned on her phone and ignored a series of calls and messages looking for her. Seeing Ji-won's name, she thought for a moment and then pressed call. The image of Yumi in Ji-won's eyes had not yet collapsed. She wanted to take advantage of Ji-won, a journalist and someone with a wide network of contacts, to help her find a job. As expected, Ji-won introduced Yumi to a good job, working as a teacher at an art cram school. When filling out her resume, Yumi opened Hyunju's passport and filled out all the information of the other person. She used her English name, Anna, before the interview. Yumi tried to make her hair look like a rich lady. She rented a branded outfit to create an image. The introduction of Ji-won, and plus Hyunju's academic ability, she immediately received the trust of the person in charge of the exam preparation school. She could start taking classes immediately. When returned the brand clothes, Yumi took the watch that Hyunju gave her as payment, but the staff told her that this brand has been caught up in a counterfeit scandal in the past few years. So this watch now has a label in the industry that no one wants. At this time, Yumi just found out why Hyunju gave it to her, because it was trash that she didn't want anymore. This humiliating humiliation Yumi could never forget. She never allowed herself to be the one trampled on. In order for the new job to gain a foothold, Yumi applied to change her name to Anna. She also went to many different study abroad institutions as a consultant to learn what this industry is like. Then she informed the student she taught. This looked extremely professional. Yumi's intelligence and natural acting fooled everyone she came into contact with. One night, a neighbor called to report because of a road construction project, her father's suit shop will be confiscated, so Yumi will receive a sum of money. Part of the money she uses to send her mother to a nursing home, the rest to rent a better full apartment in Seoul. After that, she went to buy a few fake designer clothes to continue living under the name Anna. While working at a tutoring class, Yumi met a teacher who had been an overseas schoolmate with Hyunju. Although this teacher had heard of Hyunju, but had never met her, so she had no doubts about Yumi's identity. Although Yumi had no educational qualifications, she was a very good tutor. The student she tutored was able to successfully enter college. Because of this ability, fewer people doubted her identity. Just like that, another 2 years passed. Yumi relies on her lies and acting skills to fill that illusory life little by little. One day, teacher Jun came to see Yumi. She wanted to invite Yumi to become a liberal arts teacher at a famous school. Being able to sit in this position will add another layer of gold to Yumi's resume. But Miss Jun also made it clear that this is not a free introduction. Yumi needs to spend some money to get this opportunity. She had to change from renting a whole house to a monthly rental house to take advantage of this opportunity. Afterwards, Miss Jun took Yumi to meet the board of directors of a prestigious school. Yumi was elegant and knowledgeable and passed the interview round successfully. After becoming a lecturer at a prestigious university, she also became a professor respected by everyone. Yumi also worked very hard. She memorizes classic literary works analyzed in each class. She proves to be knowledgeable. Her beautiful appearance and friendly teaching style have made Professor Yumi's reputation increasing. The number of students is also increasing. Other professors saw that she was so talented and still single, so they just wanted to be her matchmaker. Even introduced Yumi to a representative of a company that went public. Yumi soon met Representative Ji-hoon. During their first meeting, Ji-hoon boasted about his financial resources and artistic taste. However, from Yumi's point of view, she was not satisfied with Ji-hoon's preferences. She also spoke metaphorically about the sofa to evaluate. Yumi used the excuse of not wanting to get married to refuse Ji-hoon, but Ji-hoon did not give up. He asked Yumi to meet him at least 3 times. If there was still no progress, he would respect Yumi's decision. Even though Yumi agreed to this request, she still felt that Ji-hoon did not have the maturity and self-improvement of a person with money, but more like an upstart who only knows how to brag, and that's the truth. Ji-won told Yumi that Ji-hoon started again from nothing. He increased his net worth through stock speculation. Although he is a person in the information technology field, he has no educational qualifications. Only after having money did he attending a lifelong education college at a prestigious school. After learning about Ji-hoon's background, Yumi felt sympathetic. She wanted to use another aspect to see that she and Ji-hoon were similar people. They are all people with no education level, and they all climbed from scratch. Thinking like that, Yumi suddenly felt that Ji-hoon was not unacceptable. On the contrary, she felt even more favorable eyes more. After that, the two started dating and very quickly entered the stage of discussing marriage. One day, Yumi visited her mother. Her mother said in sign language that she dreamed that Yumi cried very sadly. She seemed to want to going somewhere far away. Yumi looked sadly at her mother. She would not go to a faraway place but would get married. Due to her fake identity, her mother could not attend Yumi's wedding. Her parents, or also the actress that Yumi hired, came. Immediately after that, Ji-hoon and Yumi held a grand wedding. At this time, she officially entered the upper class. She became the wife of the company representative. When taking family photos at the wedding ceremony, Ji-hoon's father also called his nephew to take a picture with them. The boy looked a bit autistic. As soon as he saw the bouquet of flowers in Yumi's hand, he continuously talked about all kinds of topics that he knew. After getting married, Yumi became Ji-hoon's pride. From being a person with nothing to start a business and be able to marry a wife who graduated from a prestigious school is a feeling of pride. Like most other businessmen, when Ji-hoon's wealth has accumulated to a certain level, he will want to be famous. He took Yumi everywhere to attend meetings of the rich, to participate in politics, but the more people he knew, the more people heard the name Hyunju. Although Yumi always silently accompanies, she still hopes that Ji-hoon will not participate in this field. One day, Ji-hoon attended a painting scholarship award ceremony. The next person to speak was a deaf and mute girl. Because the sign language teacher did not arrive in time, so Yumi proactively translated for her. Seeing that she was very worried, Yumi comforted her with sign language. Here only Yumi can understand the way she expresses. Everyone else doesn't understand sign language. Yumi's words made her laugh. She stood on stage and gave a speech, and then accepted the award in sign language for Yumi to translate. After speaking, the little girl hugged Yumi tightly. This attracted cheers from the audience and the media. Ji-hoon was very satisfied satisfied with Yumi, because a successful politician needed this the most. One day, Yumi returning home, while she was in the elevator, a girl walked in. Unexpectedly, that person was Hyunju. Yumi's expression immediately became frightened. She began to lower her head to avoid Hyun's gaze, but Hyunju still saw Yumi's face. She thought for a while, and then finally opened her mouth to ask if it was Yumi, but Yumi avoided and did not dare to answer anything. At this time, her elegance and intelligence, her normal routine was gone. As soon as got home, she sat down on the ground in fear and panting. From that day on, Yumi began to feel insecure. The appearance of Hyunju caused Yumi's protective shell of her new life to crack, especially when she discovered that Hyunju seemed to live in the same building as her. Because the next night, the two unexpectedly met again in the parking lot. She immediately asked the people who worked at Hyunju's house the day before to find out the situation, then learned that author Lee passed away last year. His company was also in bankruptcy. Hyunju recently returned home due to a divorce, following the artist's footsteps into the fashion industry. As for whether she will return abroad or not, the other party is not very clear. This news made Yumi's sense of crisis even stronger. The next day after returning home, she convinced Ji-hoon to move house. The reason being because she wanted to live in a house with windows that could be opened completely. But Ji-hoon's opinion about the house is only concerned with whether it is expensive and whether it shows status or not. The house is currently exactly as he wanted. Of course, Yumi's request was rejected. Yumi helplessly went to meet Ji-won. Ji-won really wanted to work in the political department of the media. Yumi always remembered Ji-won's help for her, so Yumi helped her by asking. Ji-hoon helped introduce. Ji-hoon said he could accommodate, but everything had its price. In exchange, he wanted Yumi to go back and forth with the wives of other councilmen to build relationships. Even though Yumi did not like it, but just have to agree. Although Ji-hoon wants to participate in politics with the slogan of always being upright, in private, his personality is arrogant and domineering. He will ignore the complaints of customers. He will ignore the complaints of his neighbors and use a drill at night. He will also hit the driver, who is late, for just a few seconds. His mouth uttered words of instruction and insulted the person who did exactly the same as Lee that year. This scene really made Yumi very uncomfortable, as if she was remembering her old self. One day, the student that Yumi tutored before came to see her, and also brought along the American snacks that Yumi said she loved to eat. Yumi gently thanked the student, with many mixed emotions in her heart, because Ji-hoon refused to move house in order to avoid rain. Yumi had to take the stairs every day. It's been like that for a while, but once the crack appears on the protective sheath, it only grows. Yumi had just stepped out of the stairs that day when she saw Hyunju holding a letter from the school and asked her what this was all about. The school on the envelope was clearly the school that Hyunju had attended. Yumi also became her English name, Anna. Under Hyunju's interrogation, Yumi had no choice but to tell the whole story. She knelt down in front of Hyunju and said she would stop. She just needed Hyunju gives her a little more time. But Hyunju has no intention of forgiving Yumi because Yumi took away her life, even living better than her. This is the price Yumi has to pay for tricking her. Hyunju asked Yumi to prepare 3 billion won next month, but this condition is no different from asking to crawl into a tiger's den. Even though Yumi is the business wife, in fact, she is just a tool for Ji-hoon to decorate. She has nothing, no power or money, but Hyunju doesn't care. She only cares about the results. Before leaving, she told Yumi to continue taking the stairs, not to hover in front of her. One night, Ji-hoon drank with a group of politicians. After arriving at the parking lot, he lay drunk in the car. The building's security guard called Yumi down to take Ji-hoon home, but Yumi saw another woman was in the passenger seat. She immediately closed the car door and turned around and called the police to report that someone was drinking and driving. At the same time, Ji-won, who had just joined the political and media department, was also drinking with her colleagues because she relied on her connections to get in and was the only woman. So the whole drinking session she was talked about by male colleagues, but Ji-won did not show any anger. After the party, she looked at the drunk figure of her colleagues and said that she would achieve an achievement that would impress them. Early the next morning, Yumi deliberately asked at the dinner table why the police were looking for Ji-hoon. Ji-hoon avoided this issue and discussed establishing a scholarship fund for Yumi to be the president, which means that from now on, now that Yumi will often appear in the media, she instinctively resists. But Ji-hoon says that money and power must be seen by others to be meaningful, especially in elections. Hearing that Yumi didn't say anything anymore, at this time the woman who was with Ji-hoon last night unlocked the door to the house. Ji-hoon said that starting today, she would go to work and leave work with his secretary. When the secretary saw Yumi, she immediately introduced herself. Ironically, the secretary's name was also Yumi, in order to get the 3 billion won that Hyunju asked for. Yumi started racking her brain. One day, the maid at home wants to take leave tomorrow, but tomorrow was the day Ji-hoon was preparing to invite politicians to his house for dinner. This naturally made Yumi even more angry. She was usually a gentle person, and suddenly scolded her loudly. She couldn't hold back and said scolding words like Arthur Lee and Ji-hoon did. She said, "Why do people from the lower class cause more trouble for her?" When the scolding poured out, Yumi saw she also unconsciously despised this lower class earlier, even though it was a big event in life for a maid, was not as important as the daily food and drink of the upper class. When Yumi lost her temper, she did know when the secretary quietly stood aside. Seeing her, Yumi gradually calmed down. Yumi finally agreed to the maid's request for leave. The secretary came to pick Yumi up and go to the party with her. On the way, she talked to the secretary. Yumi said that it must be very difficult to work next to Ji-hoon, but as soon as the secretary spoke, she only said good things about him. Yumi calmly said that indeed, everyone knew how to lie. She knew very well what kind of person Ji-hoon was. Parking outside the restaurant, the secretary was not in a hurry to let Yumi get out of the car, but wanted to check to see if all the guests were here. This move reminded Yumi of the old days when she served Hyunju. She also often helped her with errands, like confirming whether all the guests at the party are present or not. The secretary is now the epitome of Yumi in the past. Tonight is a dinner party for politicians. Ji-hoon just bold statement on the wine table. The next second, the secretary received a call and quietly whispered to him. The joy on Ji-hoon's face gradually faded. One day, Ji-won and Jae-ho met. Right from the start, when Jae-ho just returned from America, the two of them had contact. But that day, it was Jae-ho who initiated contact, because there was something he felt he had to tell Ji-won. As soon as he sat down, Jae-ho immediately took phone out. On it was a news article about Ji-hoon and Yumi. Jae-ho asked if this was Anna, his girlfriend back then. Ji-won nodded. She thought Jae-ho still remembered the relationship in the past. Unexpectedly, Jae-ho told a shocking story. Yumi was never a college student, but someone who failed the college entrance exam 3 times. While they were dating, he discovered that Yumi was a liar. When Ji-won heard this, she was suddenly stunned. She asked Jae-ho incredulously, how could this happen? Although she couldn't believe it. Jae-ho had reason to say so. Ji-won followed her principle of pursuing righteousness and began to investigate Yumi's background information. First, she called her university to check if the number of students admitted that year was anyone like Yumi. As a result, the school found out there were many people named Yumi, but no one graduated Department of Fine Arts. Ji-won did not give up and turned to investigate the name Anna, and still could not find such a person. Ji-won went to the landlord's house where she rented when she was in college. She also heard many things. Even more surprising, the landlord was very impressed with Yumi, because at that time, she was still owed the last 2 months of rent, and then rushed to America, even leaving a mess behind for her to clean up. Then the landlord personally went to Yumi's hometown to find her father to ask for rent money. According to the landlord's description, Yumi's hometown is in a rural town. Her parents opened a vest shop. The family doesn't seem to be rich. Following Yumi's life, Ji-won trajectory to the art classroom where Yumi used to work. The person in charge recalled Yumi's work performance. Her tutoring skills were excellent. She has helped many students get accepted into famous schools. If have to say something strange, only Yumi's English is a little strange. Ji-won asked to see the personal information Yumi sent when she applied for the job and academic certificates. On the other side, the hardship of making money was surrounding Yumi. She really couldn't do anything. One day in the parking lot, Yumi saw Hyunju talking on the phone and then tried to go into the house. Yumi pressed the accelerator and rushed forward, wanting the opponent to just disappear. But when she is about to crash into Hyunju, Yumi loses her courage. She's also was laughed at by Hyunju. Because of the agreement with Ji-hoon, Yumi begins to meet the other's wives. Congressmen attract relationships. Just like other politicians' wives are just tools for their husbands to gain more power, the so-called closer relationship is just for them to help convey various transactions. A new person to follow political situation. Recent Ji-hoon, of course, received many people who came to give him gifts, but Yumi did not like this type of communication. She had a cold attitude towards the woman who came to give her gifts. Even when the other person gave Yumi 100,000 won she didn't like. That night, when Yumi suddenly met Hyunju in the parking lot, she directly gave the other person 100,000 won, saying that she tried her best, but Hyunju didn't pay attention, immediately threw the money on the ground. She said that if you didn't have money, you should go ask your husband, or if you didn't know how to open your mouth, let me help. Even though Hyunju threatened, Yumi found a ray of hope in her sentence. After returning home, she began to list the congressmen's wives that she needed to meet. If everyone could donate money, then she would easily earn 3 billion. Yumi's attitude towards the wives of the congressmen, who had completely changed. She tried her best to show a friendly side of herself, so that the wives of the congressmen would be satisfied with her. Looking at the bags of money the other wives brought to her, Yumi gradually became more comfortable. Ji-won's investigation reached Yumi's high school days. She went to Yumi's hometown. As soon as she got out of the car, she luckily walked into a neighbor's snack shop. The neighbor took care of her mother. Yumi Yumi for many years. When she heard Ji-won talk about Yumi, her expression was full of pride. The neighbor and her mother always thought Yumi was still in America, following clues. Ji-won went to Yumi's high school and learned about the past when she went to school here. Yumi's appearance and grades were both excellent. She just liked the feeling of being noticed too much. In her last year of high school, she fell in love with a young teacher. She suffered a big blow, so she was forced to move to Seoul. The teacher remembered several times when Yumi came home from Seoul and cried all night at home. Early in the morning, she took the first bus back to Seoul. People like her being praised for growing up. Once realizing that she has no value, she will become very fragile. So the teacher is also very curious about what kind of person Yumi has become now. At this time, Ji-won receives the call from the company. Her superior asked her to spend time tonight to meet Ji-hoon. Ji-won wanted to refuse, but when she heard that the person who introduced her to the job was Ji-hoon, she quickly returned to meet him. Sitting down, Ji-hoon immediately gave her a gift. Inside was exclusive information from a competitor. He wants Ji-won to thank him for his introduction and become his warrior to destroy the enemy in the field of public opinion. This will help him remove obstacles. It will also greatly help Ji-won's career. But Ji-won is not satisfied with being a backdoor person. This made Ji-won feel humiliated. After all, her principle of becoming a reporter is to find out the truth, not the future. Ji-won immediately put down the documents. Clearly, she wanted to refuse Ji-hoon. He didn't get angry, seeing that he just felt that she had not yet experienced the pain of being oppressed. She shouldn't make it difficult for herself to move forward, just because of her cheap self-esteem. He also said that she should learn from that. Yumi, no matter how excellent she is just a university professor. Only by seizing the opportunity to marry him will she have a more glorious life. Listen to complacency of Ji-hoon. Ji-won showed an unpleasant expression after seeing Ji-hoon go. Ji-won received Yumi's resume, an email from a foreign university confirming that there was indeed a person named Anna with a degree from the school of them. Now Ji-won is confused about who Yumi really is. Today, Hyunju's daughter and her husband returned home. She went to the airport. Even though the flight was delayed a bit, she was still extremely dissatisfied with her husband. Hyunju has been a princess all her life and gets whatever she wants. She has never had to care about other people's thoughts. Only the daughter was really the only one to her. Hyunju and her husband were going through divorce proceedings. As soon as Hyunju met her daughter, she happily hugged this baby and left, leaving her mother and husband to drag their luggage. The husband can't wait to complete the divorce proceedings so that he doesn't have to see Hyunju again. After daughter returned to Seoul, Hyunju started buying many toys and clothes for her. She happily took her home to play with her. In fact, Hyunju's life after returning home is not very good. In this life, she only spends money, not earn money. After author Lee's death, she almost lost all her family's assets, even borrowing 3 billion won with real estate as collateral behind her mother's back. This is the reason she insisted on demanding 3 billion from Yumi. Not long after Ji-hoon was elected as a candidate for mayor of Seoul, Yumi took the field stage to give flowers to her husband. Everyone took affectionate photos of the couple in front of the camera. The campaign team chanted Anna's name, but she just sat calmly next to Ji-hoon. In her heart, she didn't feel happy at all. Ji-hoon and his teammates stayed up all night to celebrate. Yumi couldn't stand it anymore, so she went home first. After the secretary took Yumi go home, she rushed to the party. Her job must have a biological clock like Ji-hoon's. When entering the elevator, the tired secretary sat down on the floor. Yumi at home didn't have the strength to take a shower either. She lay flat on the ground and fell asleep. Whether in the upper class or lower class, the name Yumi is always just a symbol of vanity. Underneath her bright appearance is always a poor soul, trampled by money and power. The next day, Yumi woke up and continued to meet many other ladies. More and more people came to give gifts. Yumi only talked a few words and was able to earn a large sum of money. This easily made her doubt her life. At night, Yumi went to the pharmacy to buy digestive medicine and saw on TV the news that a 30-year-old woman was disappointed with life, so she killed herself by burning coal in her car on the way home. Yumi happened to pass by the house of the deceased in the news and felt sad. Couldn't help but feel emotional. If she hadn't weaved all kinds of lies, perhaps she wouldn't have embarked on the path that led to such an outcome. When entering the apartment, she no longer went up the stairs, but instead pressed the elevator. Yumi returned home to see the news about a 30-year-old woman who killed herself by burning coal, and this deceased person was Hyunju. She remembered the scene of being blackmailed by Hyunju before Hyunju left and asked Yumi to continue taking the stairs and not appear in front of her. Yumi therefore concluded that such an arrogant Hyunju could not kill herself. Ji-hoon returned home immediately after that. He asked Yumi why she didn't attend such an important occasion today. She said that she had guests. After all, on such occasions, Yumi just needs to sit there quietly like a vase of flowers. Even if she is absent, it's not a big deal. He's not satisfied with Yumi's attitude towards him. That kind of talk makes Yumi feel like an employee working under Ji-hoon. Last time Ji-hoon fired the driver, he said the same thing. Seeing that Yumi openly contradicted him and was no longer obedient, he asked Yumi to quit her teaching job. Yumi had no intention of listening to him, seeing that Ji-hoon sent his secretary to Yumi, but actually wanted to observe her every move. The next day, Ji-hoon and his wife attended the event to establish the scholarship fund. Yumi spoke gracefully on the stage, added radiance to Ji-hoon's face, and won applause. In addition, Ji-hoon also gave various speeches expressing his political ideals. A passionate speech immediately ignited the audience. In the end, Ji-hoon even knelt down, leaving the people to mourn, showing political determination to serve the country and people. In addition to collaborating with Ji-hoon to participate in various activities, Yumi also has her own life. She likes teaching. Once in a while after school, Yumi was suddenly informed to temporarily stop teaching because Ji-hoon would continue to participate in the election. As soon as Yumi heard the news, she knew that Ji-hoon was behind this. In the end, she reluctantly signed application for temporary leave. The female secretary was completely working with Yumi. Yumi ordered her to investigate the address of the fired driver. In addition to other employees who were fired for unknown reasons, the female secretary didn't know why. Yumi didn't say much, just asked the other person to keep it a secret and not to reveal this to Ji-hoon. Not long after Yumi went to meet the driver. Recently, she often contacted other people. Employee was fired. She wanted to learn about Ji-hoon's little-known secrets through them, but the driver had signed a confidentiality agreement, so he did not dare to reveal it. Yumi persuaded him. She said that a person like Ji-hoon, who is different from appearance, is not worthy to be the mayor of Seoul. On the other hand, Ji-won was shown an old website by her colleague. She bought Anna's graduation photo album from her old school abroad. After watching, Ji-won realized that Anna's name was Hyunju's, so she contacted Anna's classmate. The other person remembered that Anna had two names. Her Korean name was Hyunju, and her English name was Anna. That classmate also said that Hyunju lived in Boston and didn't return to Korea until last year to file for divorce. In addition, this person also said another thing. Hyunju had previously hired someone to write an essay, graduation essay for herself. Following Hyunju's clues as a reporter, Ji-won went to the police station to ask for details about Hyunju's death. The police confirmed that Hyunju had indeed committed suicide. She has debts from stock trading and is about to get divorced, and she has been drinking for a long time and frequently goes to casinos. In addition, Hyunju's mother also said that she has bipolar disorder. The other day, then it was another beautiful day. Yumi participated in a volunteer event. When she was interviewed, she was radiant in front of others. But after a busy day, Yumi sat helplessly in the car. She didn't want to go back to that cold house. The secretary handed over the tax records of the company under investigation to Yumi. The two started chatting in the car. As for the secretary, she could never understand the owner's mood. Yumi also felt the same. She felt was in a bad mood, so she borrowed a cigarette and a lighter from her secretary and went home. Ji-won returned to the newspaper office, but saw that everyone was busy. Then she learned that she had recently received hot news from Ji-hoon. He used to have a wife and an autistic child. The leader used this title so people could quickly write articles. At the same time, Ji-hoon also received the news and felt very upset. He requested the subordinate knelt down to let him vent his anger. After the incident was revealed, his political career could end here. While he was cursing, the employee's phone rang at the same time. It turned out is that more negative news about Yumi appeared on the internet. The news pointed out that Yumi's thesis was fake. This made things worse. Ji-hoon immediately called Yumi. He found someone wrote an essay for her. A few hours later, that person would receive an interview and declare that he was not writing for Yumi, but that he and Anna were research partners for safety reasons. Ji-hoon asked Yumi not to appear in the media in the near future. She must be more careful with her words and actions to wait for the storm to pass. From his words, Yumi realized that Ji-hoon knew her identity. Ji-hoon no longer hid it, and even said that Hyunju was quite brave to proactively contact her. After saying that he smiled sinister, Yumi was shocked after finding out who he really was. Ji-hoon signaled her to keep quiet, and he ordered the bodyguard to take Yumi home. Arriving at the parking lot, but she never wanted to going up to the house. She suddenly heard Hyunju's voice, and then stepped towards the other person. Hyunju told about the origin of the name Anna. It turned out that when she was a child, everyone praised her as a princess was Anna, but Hyunju happened to know that the famous Princess Anna had died, and this princess had also had people impersonate her. So later on, she no longer used the name Anna. Yumi felt heartbroken because even the identity she stole was also fake. Hyunju criticized Yumi that it was Yumi who killed her. Later, Yumi would have to live in hell. After saying that, she turned around and left. Since the incident about Hyunju happened, the couple became more and more inseparable. Yumi also became more and more disgusted with her husband. In private, the couple took off their masks. Yumi mentioned Ji-hoon's ex-wife and children. Ji-hoon told Yumi is the daughter of a tailor shop owner. The two of them talked about Hyunju again. Ji-hoon thought he had solved the obstacles ahead. She was in trouble, so she should thank him. But Yumi did not agree with his behavior. Ji-hoon was immediately angry and grabbed Yumi's neck. When she was about to suffocate, he let go. Ji-hoon whispered in her ear that he didn't want that woman to die either. But things have come to this point, and Yumi is also an accomplice. accomplice. Even though Ji-hoon's scandal broke out, his approval rating has increased a lot. Major news sites also reported related news. Yumi's image was also released. Then Yumi was interviewed. She used her acting skills again. About the rumors related to her thesis, she no longer cared about, and about Ji-hoon's sick child. She didn't want the child to become the subject of criticism. On the other side, Ji-hoon's subordinates reported that the amount of money Yumi received from others amounted to 3 billion won. Hearing that, Ji-hoon immediately contacted the mental hospital. He said Yumi had a problem, so after the election he wanted to throw her in there. Yumi also had her own plan. She proactively went looking for Ji-won. Ji-won admitted that she knew Yumi had used someone else's identity. Yumi explaining that because her life was so difficult, she was always jealous of Hyunju's life, which led to her starting a path of lies. Yumi took out the USB of evidence. Inside there is also the fact that Yumi used Hyunju's identity, and the evidence that Hyunju was murdered, as well as Ji-hoon's ex-wife did not die due to a slip. In addition to Ji-hoon manipulating stock prices for embezzlement and tax evasion, previous hot searches about Ji-hoon and the dissertation writer for hire were also made by Yumi. Unfortunately, in the end, Ji-hoon was able to suppress it. Yumi was forced to expose everything in this way. After finishing, Yumi went to visit her mother at the nursing home. Her mother had Alzheimer's disease, so she no longer recognized Yumi. She always thought her daughter was in America. She also asked Yumi to write a letter to her daughter, who was far away. She felt sad in her heart on the way home. She asked her secretary if something happened to her. She hoped the other person would help her take care of her mother. The election results would be announced soon. Yumi received a call from the nursing home that her mother was looking for her. Her mood had hit rock bottom. Right at this moment, the news that Ji-hoon became mayor of Seoul was broadcast on television. Everyone cheered, but only Yumi looked very sad in complete contrast to the happy celebrating crowd. After the successful election, Ji-hoon wanted to go to America as soon as possible to pick up his son. After Ji-won received a reminder message from Yumi, she contacted the prosecutor. Ji-hoon had just finished his campaign. He was about to run to the airport right away. Yumi stopped her and told her that her mother was seriously ill in the nursing home, so she wanted to go there. At this moment, Ji-hoon was still joking around. It was obvious that her mother was in America. Her expression, Yumi, was gloomy. Ji-hoon did not want to let her leave at this important time. Yumi had no other choice but to board a plane to America with Ji-hoon. On the plane, Yumi received news that her mother had passed away. She suddenly had a mental breakdown. Tears fell uncontrollably. When arrived in America, Ji-hoon specifically asked to get Yumi's passport to rent a car. Then he took Yumi to drive to his son's place. On the way, Yumi received a text message that Ji-won's side was hindered. Someone above stopped the prosecutor. Yumi sighed. He unreasonably persuaded Yumi to rest for a while. Recently, she did something was so outrageous. Yumi suddenly realized this time, Ji-hoon did not come here to pick up the child, but wanted to imprison her. Ji-hoon frankly admitted. She panicked and turned to look at Ji-hoon and discovered that the other person was not wearing a seatbelt. Looking at the brake on the side, Yumi began to realize. At that moment, Ji-hoon turned to look at Yumi and accidentally saw a deer in front of him. He quickly steered in another direction. She quickly pulled the brake, suddenly losing control of the car and crashing into an electric pole on the side of the road. Yumi trembled and got out of the car. After a moment of composure, she took Ji-hoon's passport. He was stuck in the driver's seat screaming for Yumi to help him, but Yumi still motionless. She went far away to find a phone signal. A moment later, received a text message from Ji-won that their plan had failed. The prosecutor's office is completely unreliable. At this time, Ji-won, who was angry at the procuracy, climbed out the window to attract attention, escaping from the bad guys who wanted to arrest her. After heard the news, Yumi was extremely disappointed. If justice could not defeat evil, she would turn herself into a flame of darkness to do the right thing, because once it was something she made up her mind, she would definitely do it. Just like that, Yumi burned the silk scarf hanging from the bag and walked towards Ji-hoon. She coldly finished him off with a fire. Ji-hoon's passing was quickly reported, and Yumi disappeared. Not long after, Ji-hoon's funeral was held, but it was extremely deserted. Except for reporters, there was only his autistic son playing nearby. A few years later, in snow-covered Canada, Anna pulled the carriage firewood back to her small house. It turned out that she had walked from America to Canada on her own. Anna took off her heavy clothes to reveal a haggard face. Remembering that day in the firelight, she threw her bag carrying and lighter into the car. Ignoring Ji-hoon's screams, she kept walking without looking back, thinking about the past. Yumi screamed in pain. The movie is over. Goodbye, and see you again in our next videos.